Chapter 6. It seemed as if they had been plodding through the snow for hours when Gabby saw the path ahead of them opening up and letting more light through the dense forest. "It looks like we're getting to the end of the trail," she announced, turning her head towards Stefano and Malou behind her. "Makes no difference to me, I still can't open my eyes." "You know, Daniel, it's a good thing you can't see anything right now," Stefano said. "Otherwise you'd see my fist just in front of your nose." Daniel's reaction was instantaneous and fierce. He swung around and adopted a pugilist's stance, ready to tackle an invisible adversary. His brother and sister and mother burst into loud laughter. "You're just a sight for sore eyes," Malou quipped. "But really, Daniel, you need to control your impulses or you'll find yourself in a heap of trouble someday." "Very good advice, Mrs. Politano," Damianos interposed, appearing from behind a tree unexpectedly. "Your son, although slightly incapacitated, still needs to be reined in as a wild colt." "Stop referring to me as an animal," Daniel shouted in the direction of Damianos' voice. "Why don't you let me open my eyes so we can get to the house, eh?" "All in good time, Daniel. You still need to rely on your instincts rather than on anyone else guiding you." "How can I rely on what I don't see?" Daniel argued, turning toward the spot where he thought Damianos had been standing. "Your sight only confirms what you perceived before your eyes were able to see." "You mean like I can hear where you are, but would only be able to confirm your location once I open my eyes?" "Now you're getting somewhere," Stefano remarked, having observed Damianos' maneuver to guide Daniel toward him. "Yes, Daniel," Damianos went on, "and now that you've reached the end of the trail, you are the one who is going to guide your family to the house." "Me?" Daniel shouted. "How do you expect me to guide everybody when I don't see anything and when I don't even know where we are?" "But you know very well where we are, Daniel," Malou said. "You just need to remember where you were playing all the time when you were a kid." "Yes, Daniel, your mother is right. You were about 7 years old and came here to play in the snow," Damianos rejoined, opening his arms wide, a gesture that parted the drapes of foliage, barring their passage so that everyone could see the edge of the woods and the hill leading to their old home. "And now you're going to follow my voice. It will lead you and your family back to the house." "But—" "No, Daniel, stop arguing," Malou urged. "And do what you're told. We'll be right behind you." Damianos cracked a smile and then returned his attention to the old mansion ahead of them. He began walking and started whistling quietly. Gabby, the compassionate one, grabbed her brother by the arm and turned him toward Damianos' back. "You go now and follow the whistle," she whispered, pushing him ahead of her. Dan was up bright and early the next morning. He had decided the night before to make his meeting with Mrs. Stevens the first item on his agenda. He needed her to tell him where he lived, given that he believed he was staying in Key West for a purpose, that of attending his pilot training right on the base. As for Fabio not answering his phone, he surmised that his friend had probably returned home and would be back on the 10th. As they were eating breakfast, Gustavo asked, "Are you going to call your parents today?" Dan shook his head. "No, I mean I will. As you said, it will be better for me to call once I know for sure whether I've got a place here, or if only I came here to the Navy base to enroll. Once I know what I'm doing when I fell into that park, I'll call them just to check in." Gustavo drank the last of his coffee and stared into space for a minute before he said, "You know what you said yesterday got me thinking." "About what?" "About me getting a job again. Since I've met you, my visions or daydreams about the war have not been so prominent. It seems that when my mind is busy with something else, it doesn't have time to wander down memory lane so much." "But didn't that happen when you had a job?" "No, not really. See, I didn't have a break when I got back. I should have taken Liz on a holiday or something, but we didn't. I just got off the plane one night, and a week later I was working." "How about working with someone? Like going back to operating a crane, but only part-time and with another guy? Would that be possible?" Gustavo laughed. "Yeah, anything is possible on a construction site, but I don't know if they would even consider hiring me." "Well, you don't know until you ask. Isn't that what you said to me?" "I guess so, but you know, the whole thing scares me a little. That's another thing you told me. The worst answer you could get is no, isn't it?" Okay, I hear you, man. I'll think about it." As Gabby, Stefano and their mother were walking up the hill toward their old home, they couldn't help but reminisce about the days they were living in Pennsylvania. "It was cold, wasn't it, Mum?" Gabby said, lacing one arm into the crook of her mother's elbow. "Yes, it was. We forgot about the cold, the snow, and only remember the good times we had." "But we were happy here, weren't we?" Stefano remarked musingly. Malou looked up at her eldest son. "Yes, we were, actually. Winter or summer, we enjoyed living here." When Daniel managed to trip and fall flat on his face into the snow, everyone laughed, except for Daniel, who was more enraged than ever. Damiano stopped, but didn't turn around. "Are you going to get up, brush yourself off and continue following the whistle, or are you ready for your next tantrum?" I'm up. Just go ahead, I'm listening," Daniel replied, tilting his head to the resuming sound of the whistle. It took the four of them and Damianos another few minutes to reach the front steps of the house. "Here we are, then," he declared, moving backward and away from the front porch. "I'll leave you in good hands, I'm sure." He looked at Daniel. "You can open your eyes now." "You're right, I can," Daniel shouted, looking around him. "I never thought I could do that. Wow, that was something else." He stared at his mother. "You know, it was strange that I could hear everything so clearly. I think next time I need to find my way somewhere, I'll close my eyes." Which remark provoked another round of laughter among his siblings and mother. "Where's Damianos?" Gabby swung on her heels and threw a glance down the hill. "Why is he gone?" "Never mind, Gabby, he'll be back, don't worry," her mother replied, turning to face the door. "Okay now, please remember again, this is all in your imagination, so please don't be surprised, all right?" "All right, Mum," Stefano said. "Do we knock or do we go in?" "Just see if the door is open. If it is, let's go in." Stefano tried the knob and it turned very easily. "Hello?" he said quietly, pushing the door open. "Hello? Anyone home?" "My goodness me, son. Don't just stand there," Solangi said, trotting down the hallway. "Let your mum and siblings come in. It's still cold out there." She smiled brightly as soon as her gaze rested on Malou. "Time has treated you well, my dear. You look wonderful." She took her visitor in her arms and embraced her. "But come on in and take a seat by the fire. You must be frozen." "Thank you, Miss Solangi," Stefano said, taking his boots off. "I'm Stefano, and this is my brother Daniel and my sister Gabby." "Very nice meeting you all in person at long last, I'm sure," Solangi replied, making her way to her favourite chair, the one facing the fireplace. Imitating Stefano, everyone took their boots and anoraks off and followed Solangi to the living room. "Wow, how many books are there on these shelves?" Daniel asked, looking up to the ceiling. "There must be thousands, Daniel, but to tell you the truth, I've never counted them." "But I guess only one of them will interest us," Malou said, taking a seat on the sofa beside Gabby. "Yes, my dear. However, to find that particular book, you will need to answer a riddle." "What sort of a riddle?" Stefano asked, plopping down into the other chair beside Solangi. "It is getting late, so why don't we have dinner before we begin our quest, shall we?" "You mean it has something to do with food?" Daniel asked. He was still standing, his back to the fireplace. "No, my dear Daniel, but I hate rushing things, as your mother will tell you, and I couldn't possibly remember everything on an empty stomach." With these words, Solangi got up and made her way to the kitchen. "Do you want some help?" Gabby was quick to say, already on her feet. Yes, my dear. Why don't you come and help me with a few things?" As soon as the two women were out of earshot, Daniel went to sit beside his mother. "Do you think she'll tell Gabby what we need to know?" Malou patted her son's knee. "If she told Gabby aside, she has her reasons for doing so. It's best to let things happen rather than trying to second-guess an angel." "She sure doesn't look like one," Daniel said. Chuckling quietly, Stefano said, "Did you imagine she'd be floating about the house with wings at her back, maybe?" "No, but I never thought to see an old, crippled woman." "You've missed the point, Daniel," Malou countered. "Appearance will deceive you, and she needed to return to the person she was when she occupied this house at the time these books were placed here." "Do you think each of these books have answers to someone's problems or dilemma?" "Yes, Stefano. I didn't realize it until I went back to 2013. I now believe each of these represents an experience or are the written answers to someone's questions. That's why there are so many of them, I suppose," Daniel said. "And you haven't seen them all yet. There are bookshelves in every room of the house, including the basement." In the kitchen, Solangi was putting the last touches to the spaghettis and meat sauce. Gabby watched her with interest. "You know, spaghettis are one of my mother's specialties. You might have to give her your recipe. These look and smell great." "Oh, but dear, this is her recipe. I spied her many times while she was cooking. She is a wonderful cook." "You could say that again," Gabby rejoined, giggling. "Okay, what can I do?" "Why don't you take the salad out of the fridge and get it ready to serve?" Gabby turned and stepped to the fridge, opened it, and was surprised to find only the solitary bowl of salad standing on the middle shelf. Although strange at first, she remembered that Solangi being here in the flesh, so to speak, was only temporary, and that an angel wouldn't need to eat anything. "Looks like you've raided the grocery store, Miss Solangi," Gabby remarked, bringing the salad bowl to the table and starting to toss it. "Oh no, my dear, I don't go out anymore. I have everything brought to my door, for the time being anyway." "Do you have many visitors like us?" "I shouldn't say many, but enough to keep me occupied," Solangi answered, stopping whatever she was doing to turn her gaze to Gabby. "But while you and your family are here, I would like you to go down the cascade of your memories. Your mother and brothers will need to come to the surface of the pool with the reeds of your father's life." "What does that mean?" Gabby asked, slightly baffled. She wondered if this Description was part of the riddle. "You'll soon find out, child." Slangy grabbed the spaghettis and sauce and headed out of the kitchen to the dining room.